Hey guys, I just wanted to start off with this video because it's been about a couple of weeks just trying to power through YouTube videos, and I thought I'd just give an update personally. Whenever there's a goal that's on your mind, right, like coming out with 1,000 YouTube videos, of course that's the pipe dream, something that I aim for. There is also sometimes these waves of undeniable anxiety is the thing that kind of keeps me up at night and gets me wondering whether or not I'm doing the right thing. And of course, retrospectively, as I think about it and surf these thoughts, I know that deep down inside, there must be so many other people who are trying to aim for their goals and have this huge amount of anxiety. And I figured that it might be a good idea to just share some protocols by which I work on this and deal with it. There are a few things that I do to kind of cope with this. The first one is I try to process it, which is what I'm doing here. So as I'm sitting down and thinking about this somewhat debilitating, not really debilitating, it's a very distracting kind of an experience. Like I'm sitting down, I'm trying to do my stuff, and my mind just goes to different places, right? It gets anxious that the video's not ready for 3 p.m. today. And then at the same time, there's another part of me that's trying to get my research done in order to get the next few videos out. And then I've got all the other stuff that's in my life that I need to deal with. And the moment they crop up, there's a tendency for me to kind of like suppress it. But I know that's not what I should do because, hey, I'm the guy who talks about how you should confront your feelings and all that kind of stuff. But it does happen on occasion because it's like there's some part of the schedule that just says, sorry, I ain't got time for you right now. I just need to deal with the immediate thing that's right in front of me. Kind of fighting fire. So I had to stop and say, what are some of the mechanisms that I actually use to handle this, right? So that I don't have a debilitating experience of anxiety and that I can still move forward. There's so many thoughts that come to mind, and this approach is actually known as cognitive diffusion. Diffusion, meaning to say that you take away, right, the cognition that's attached to whatever it is that you're doing. In other words, you're talking about the feeling rather than actually experiencing the feeling itself. This is known as metacognition, right? You're taking yourself away from it and then you're observing from a third party or third position, according to NLP, and utilizing this approach to sort of like explore and examine whatever's going on inside of you. So I'm pretty much aware that whenever I have these surgent feelings, I do my best to notice it, and then I go, okay, I notice you, but I can't deal with you at the moment. This is a meditative practice anyway for mindfulness. Whenever you get a distraction, you acknowledge it and then you go, you know what, this is not the time for me to deal with it. I will deal with it later. However, it's also important that you do deal with it. So I believe that there is a internal structure that enables you to come to terms with oneself. So if I say I'll deal with it, I've got to deal with it. So there is a nagging experience now. That's why I turned on the camera and I decided to do this recording first thing in the morning while I was attempting to do my research, but there's this piece of me that's kind of distracting and coming in the way. So this is what I call holding space, right? So I hold the space for that particular thought and I do my best to articulate it. The issue is, as I'm talking about it, I may or may not be connected with it. So let me first of all spill the beans in terms of how I actually feel. There's an absolute feeling of dread. There's so many things to do, right? And the voice is really loud inside my head. So whenever I go like, there's so many things that I have to do, there's so many things I have to deliver, so many people are booking calls with me, and then it just begins to spiral, right? So this is a negative vicious cycle that I talked about in one of my earlier videos, and it is an internal dialogue that I have with myself, which I'm actually quite familiar with. So I'm not afraid of it, I'm just extremely familiar with it because I know that one thing will lead down the road to something else that is even worse and even worse beyond that. So I can tell that I'm just simply amplifying my negative states. Why? Because contrary to popular belief, a lot of people think it's something in your head. No, it's the nature of how we tend to be overall, humans have a negativity bias. People who are optimistic in general tend to combat this very consciously. So I can tell that somebody who is extremely conscious tends to have some of these inherent thoughts as well. They're just deliberately trying to combat it in order to come up with a better way of thinking and to sort of like dam off the negative emotional spiel and then to open up the pathway to something more useful. And I think that's going to be a very helpful way of dealing with life in general. I'm not the oracle, right? I don't know the future and I can't tell the future, but why is it that sometimes I'm so confident? It's simply because I'm combating the alternative, which is 10 times worse. Like, is it better for me to be optimistic about an uncertain future, or is it better for me to be practical and realistic about the eventual failure or terror? Yeah, so I don't know how to answer that question. All I can say is that between these two, I think there's a better way to enjoy life, right? So I do know that we mentally simulate reality inside our heads, and really there's no reality that is right or wrong. The only reality that I know is the reality that I create inside my head, which is another reason why that approach to just sitting down with the emotion, feeling terrible about the emotion is just really not the best choice for me. Avoiding it is also a terrible choice as far as my theory of the human mind is concerned. And that's one of the reasons why I have to do what I do. I'm literally compelled to do all of these videos because the more I think about it, the more I go like, look, more people need to know about this. More people need to realize that it doesn't matter you're a psychologist, you have these freaking thoughts all the time. It doesn't matter that you are a business owner who's making like $60 million, $100 million. You are going to experience these anyway. It is the curse of doing something new, right? Some people call it imposter syndrome. I just call it reality. I mean, this is the reason for why some managers get promoted into what they call the Peter Principle. You know, you get promoted to a level of incompetence, which may or may not always be true, but look, every single thing that you endeavor to do is going to be new. Like, there are only two attitudes to it, right? To go in with dread or to go in with a sense of curiosity and fun. So whenever NLP comes into my life, neuro-linguistic programming, not natural language processing, whenever that comes into my life and I start thinking about debilitating states, I automatically switch into curiosity by surfing and figuring out what these debilitating states could be and how bad it can be, and then start going like, well, that's interesting. What's the mechanism behind it? So I believe that the world has given us a very interesting approach to figuring out ourselves, and we're just not leaning into it. So most of the time, we try to explain away the things that are happening to us, right? You feel depressed and then you go like, oh, it's a hormonal thing. And then you live into that world or that interpretation. However, what I try to do is I take a look at the frameworks and the processes of which I created this reality, and I ask myself, how do I recreate this reality? And that's fascinating to me. It's like, how in the world did I get myself into this state of absolute negativity and it's just real early in the morning? And I guess maybe because it's real early in the morning, and maybe because I'm trying to think, and again, your mind can go into places where it is constantly practicing an unconscious pattern of behavior. So I have to combat this. I have to do this video, right? Because some of you guys are probably feeling it too. So I'll think about, oh my goodness, I need to create 1,000 videos, and that's a huge task. That's probably to some people is worse than climbing Everest 10,000 times. I'm not demeaning those guys who do climb Everest, you know, my hat's off to you guys. Everybody has their own Everest to climb, okay? I hope you understand that. So when I'm climbing this mountain, I'm going like, holy crap, I've got to climb this mountain and it feels so bloody exhausting. And then I got to do it again tomorrow, and again, and again, and again. And at the back of my mind, I'm going like, how did I create this? What went on inside my mind to create this? And this is about shifting the state completely into a state of absolute curiosity to investigate it. Now, here's the problem, I think. A lot of people don't have the tools to investigate and surf this. Whereas in neuro-linguistic programming, we, as master practitioners, we've got modeling. I can model myself. I can model the crap that goes on inside my head and go like, okay, so I constructed it this way. I can most certainly deconstruct it. So inside my head, I'm generating mental images of the things that I need to do, and then looking at, it's almost like going into, you guys remember the movie Star Wars, right? The new series. But you've got the character Rey, right? And then she's being trained by Luke Skywalker. Is this The Last Jedi? So she gets into this place where she can see mirror images of her infinite self. And that's a very interesting thing, because it's almost like you're taking a look at the future as a series of infinite mirror selves. And that's what I do see inside my head. It's like I see versions of me having to do the same thing over and over and over again, and then somehow the tedium blows up. It feels bad. And that's nothing more than a submodality blowout of whatever it is that you are trying to do, and it's unconscious. So imagine if you had joy inserted with each of those rather than tedium inserted with each of those. Then all of a sudden, the emotion is reversed, right? You're no longer creating, or at least I don't want to impose this on you guys, but at least I won't be able to create this entire stream of really bad feelings moving into the future. So once I understand the mechanism of how I created it, I can go, why did I do that? Why don't I do something else better? Again, it presents this idea that the brain has a better choice, and it'll lean into that better choice so that it can become much, much better. Now, as I'm talking about this, I actually feel better already. It's just a function of knowing the mechanics of how I think, well, in your case, how you think. Submodalities in neuro-linguistic programming are really, really awesome. I love it so much. I find that a lot of people underestimate the power of how you can create changes inside of your mind. So I've mentioned this, and I've kind of like mentioned this in passing in many of my videos, but I don't know if any of you actually do get it. I use it both as an intervention tool as well as a diagnostic. Diagnostic as in diagnosing why I'm having these really negative feelings. So whenever I have these negative feelings, I'll trace the process by which I did it. Like, how did I get myself into this, right? What's the mechanism inside my mind? And in submodalities, we got visual, auditory, and kinesthetic submodalities. They're variables that help us to change the structure of our reality. And if I'm looking out at myself, now, it doesn't help that a lot of people actually look at submodalities as if it is the be-all and end-all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's a useful tool to help me to diagnose and to help me to intervene in my thoughts. So by diagnosing, I'm looking at it and going, wow, this is how I construct the reality inside my mind. What's going on in here? There's this infinite number of selves doing the same thing, and it's becoming very tedious, and it makes me feel really bad. How did I do that? I did an infinite timeline of me, and I saw it getting drearier and drearier and heavier and heavier. Okay, so if I look at it from a submodality standpoint, I can see a direction of many multiple images. What if I just retained that, but instead of seeing it as dreary and gray, what if I added more and more intense colors to it? Then I play one variable like that inside my head, and then that entire string seems to change. Not very much, but it seems to change. And now I have got other variables inside my submodality list where I can start to change. Like, for example, I could add sparkles to it, right? Rather than just colors, I can add sparkles around it. I'm sure you've seen anime or cartoons or even live videos where the person seems to glow. What if I made this picture of me glow? That feels a little bit better. Now, what if I intensified the sound inside my head as I'm seeing all of this? Saying something like, ooh, interesting, wow. Okay, that kind of like amplifies a better state. So I just want you to understand that short of me going through the entire submodality list, which firstly, I know some of you might like, but the majority of people on YouTube will absolutely hate, right? It's just a technical thing and most people wouldn't want it. But if you do want it, I do have a checklist that is in the description box down below that will give you some idea of how I manipulate mental images inside my own mind. And by the same token, when people gaslight me or try to make me feel bad, a lot of it is the stuff that's not cleared out inside my head. So I'll go back to that mental checklist. By the way, I literally just went through the checklist over and over and over. Over the last 29 years, the checklist has hardly been modified, right? I'm just going inside my head, taking a look at the checklist, saying like, if I took this image and I swapped out some of these variables, how differently would I feel? And for some people, because they've already gotten into the cycle of numbing themselves again and again and again, it really just wouldn't feel good. Instead, I do my best to get connected with the feelings. Yes, I know getting connected with your feelings also means that sometimes you'll encounter the hurts, the pains, the detrimental emotions that used to make you feel bad, right? But for me, I think that's just a means to an end. So I have to get into those, and yes, I end up becoming more sensitive to emotions ultimately, but then I'll be able to manage it even better because I'm getting more practice in adjusting my submodalities and utilizing those submodalities in a manner that enables me to become more visionary of the future, more positive about the future, and well, it's not even being positive about the future, it's being in the present, imagining the future, and then being able to do stuff right, you know. So one of the things that I do sometimes catch myself doing is whenever I do something tough, I just do it as a matter of fact, right? I don't really catch myself going like, oh my gosh, it's so tedious, it's so terrible. Sometimes I just shut that off, and then I go like, okay, what do I have to do? And let's just go do it because it's quite straightforward. Here's the procedure, step 1 to step 10. Let's just complete it. Is it a video? Yeah, let's just do a video. Is it a speech? Yeah, let's just do a speech. What happens is that when so many things tend to layer on, whether you're a parent, you're an entrepreneur, look, all of us have got lives, we've got so many things happening to us at the same time, but whenever it becomes overwhelming, it's because there's something in the mind that made it overwhelming. So on one hand, it's a confession. I just wanted to put it out there that as a creator, and I really admire those guys who have got such great tenacity to build great videos. My hat's off to you guys. For those of you who've been watching this series, thank you for watching it because it's just an endeavor to kind of like upload my brain and the way I think so that more people can think in the same way. I mean, I guess you can understand why I don't put up all of my commercial stuff because, to be honest, a lot of my commercial stuff is way too advanced for the average person to understand, let alone appreciate. And that's why I have to invite people who want to learn more about it to inquire, to find out more. So let's put it this way. We're in the process of trying to elevate society to a level beyond suffering. And yet I'm suffering. And I have the means to surpass that, but it's not in the hands of every person who's suffering. So I'm putting myself in a pretty terrible dilemma, don't you think? In the sense that I don't know whether I can do it. I probably wouldn't in my lifetime, but I'm pretty sure that this channel will probably go on, right? There's more people who will learn about it, more people who will then pass it on. And of course, there'll be other people who've got other channels who might so-called compete, but that's beside the point. Every individual on this planet ought to get a chance to know how the mind works, to utilize simple tools to get them to the next level, and to adjust. And true to my word, one of the things that I said in the 15 lessons that I learned, or at least that I wish everybody would have learned, is that if you don't talk about something, you keep it on the inside, you don't get a chance to process it. So I'm so thankful that I'm a speaker, trainer, and coach, because as I'm speaking and training and coaching, guess what? As I'm speaking my mind and my heart, not just my head alone. That brings to mind an illustration. There was a day I went into a training, I didn't feel very good about myself. I just started talking from where my heart was. Like I felt terrible. And I explained it to my audience. My audience could feel the resonance to that bad feeling, And somehow, because I was talking about it, I was also coming up with my own resolution about it, cognitive diffusion. And then I utilized that to layer out a strategy that the audience would find useful. And then I suddenly realized, my goodness, I should have been doing this all this while rather than trying to have a performance, you know. But then again, some people like performances, some people can't handle this kind of an emotional confession or explanation. Look, all I can say is that for those of you who are feeling like you gotta hide away and avoid the vulnerabilities, you're just not getting practice, man. Whenever I'm with couples, they argue and then they avoid argument. They are avoiding communicating. And if they could just make that change and make that commitment, like, let's just argue, but let's make that argument 5% better or 1% better than the last time. Would that be okay? You know, a lot of things would change. A lot of transformations would happen. So I am in the process of elevating my approach. And if you've taken a look at some of the past videos that I've done, they're terrible. And in terms of quality, maybe not necessarily just content, but the way I approach it right now is a bit different. I'm speaking to you. I want to speak to you, and I want to be able to bring the right kinds of research, the right kinds of tool sets in order for things to blow out. So thank you for being on the journey with me. And if you've got further questions regarding, I don't know, debilitating emotions, things where you can't wrap your head around things, yeah, feel free to comment down below. Let me know how you feel about this style of video. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I don't know. I have a suspicion that there's a certain proportion of you who would love it and a significant number of you who would hate it. But give me a sense of it. And once I know that, it becomes easier for me to get to more videos that will really make a difference to the people around me. If you like this video, please go ahead, like, subscribe. If you hated it, please do so as well. It's better for me to get negative feedback than to just pretend that I'm the bomb, right? So yeah, and like, subscribe. Subscribe, why? Because if you like and you subscribe it, YouTube gets it. It says that this is valuable. And if you've benefited from even like a minute from this, please click on the like button so that more people like you would actually come and watch this video. That's the mission. That it's not that I have to make it happen. You're not coerced to do this. Look, if you could alleviate the pain and suffering from yourself, of your past, would you do it? I mean, if you take a look at all of these members in society who have experienced really bad negative emotional states, my suspicion is you could see yourself in them. You could probably find that if only they had some of this advice when they were much younger, they could probably alleviate it much faster. And I believe that very strongly. That's why I'm putting out these messages. So once again, if you're on the journey with me, click the like, click the subscribe, click the bell notification icon, whatever it takes. Drop me a comment, right? Engage with me. I am a real human person. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing these videos. Share it with your friends, share it on social media, and let's get the word out there. You know, I can't do this alone. I definitely need some help here. But as we're, going on this journey, it's terrible being lonely, right? But it's worse thinking that being alone is okay. So let's not make the world feel alone. Let's make them feel welcome. Let's make them feel like there is hope, that in spite of all the negative thoughts, all the negative emotions that exist, that there is a way to move forward, that there is a sense that it can be a better world. So once again, I thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.